All right. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today to kick off our four-part ERP web education series, a joint effort with Liberty Technology Advisors and Sage Enterprise Management. Just a quick look at today's agenda. Today, we are going to be talking, we'll do a quick introduction of the series as well as the panel, and then the bulk of the time we're going to be talking about really product traceability, giving some real world examples, addressing some business problems, and demoing how those solutions can be addressed on a modern solution. Today we're going to obviously be demoing on Sage Enterprise Management, and then we're going to close it up with some Q&A. Just a note on the question and answer, if you have a question at any time, please feel free to just send that through the Q&A or the chat, and we will go ahead and address them if we can fit it in during the presentation, or else we'll save those for the end. So, like I mentioned, this is the first of the four-part series. Today we're going to be talking about product traceability. The next three, we're going to be talking improving customer service through inventory visibility. That'll be in 2 weeks. And that's going to be focusing on inventory allocations and assignments to optimize inventories. On February 21st, we will be talking about inventory forecasting and long-term planning, specifically multi-echelon planning. And to close the series up on March 7th, we will be talking about harnessing actionable data for informed decision-making. And we're going to be looking there at providing one source for visibility and decision-making. So that's a look at the general series. And today, like I mentioned, we are going to be talking about product traceability, really looking at end-to-end traceability, talking about some CFR 21.11 compliance. And today we're also going to be joined by Steve Roney. Steve is a senior solution consultant over at Sage Enterprise Management. You can see a little bio on Steve here. He's got 30 years of experience in the ERP marketplace and an extensive background, earning his CPIM and SCP APICS certifications, and has been with Sage for the last 2 years. And we're also joined by John Berglund, co-founder and partner at Liberty Technology Advisors. John has an extensive background in BPR and ERP management. He's been with LTA for quite some time, and LTA focuses really on helping your business optimize its processes to run better. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you guys for joining us today. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead and really start talking about product traceability. So John, I want to go ahead and pass this over to you to get us going.
Okay. I'll reiterate what Brad said. Thank you all for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about traceability. We're going to do a brief kind of overview of what traceability means, and we're going to talk about lot tracking and serial tracking, probably a little bit about some digital and electronic versions of the traceability. And then we're going to talk in a couple of different areas. We're going to talk about something called FAA, which is the Federal Airlines, FDA, and then some of the alcohol, tobacco, what used to be the alcohol, tobacco regulations that exist, and the traceability that has to be there. And then we're going to talk a little bit about systems and the visibility that you need to have in there, and some of the requirements and the regulations around how quickly you need to be able to trace back your products. Any questions on the traceability piece?
Does not look like we have any at the moment.
Okay. So let's talk about a couple of real world examples. These are all clients of ours. And one of them is an aviation company. And there's an extreme amount of traceability that has to be available in the aviation world. And what they do is they really kit components. So they don't manufacture per se, but they do kit several components into something that does get installed on an airplane. And so they have to be FAA compliant, specifically 8100 compliant. And they have to be able to trace back within 24 hours any part that's on any plane, anywhere that their equipment is installed. The challenge that they face is sometimes if they're not doing the install of the equipment, and the airline's doing the install of the equipment, they don't know which, as they call tail, that the components are installed on. So they've got an extensive knock that will actually ping their equipment and pull down all of the lot numbers and serial numbers that are assigned to that tail at that point in time. And it will go and get the equipment directly. And that's, again, some of the kitted components. Lot tracing and serial number tracing, and especially on the serial number tracing, is pretty extensive with the FAA because you have to have 20 years of, you have to keep that and maintain that data for 20 years. And that's everything that was ever done to that component. So if it was swapped out, if it was refurbished, if it was sent back to another plane, whatever happened to that serialized item needs to be traced back directly to the tail that it's on. So pretty extensive. They did use a modern system to do this, and it did allow them to interface in with their network operating center. And so it pulled it from the network operating center and brought it over to their ERP system. So at a glance, it can be able to go in and look at what it is that they need to look for.
Great.
So another one was a wine and spirit company that we had out of New York. So traceability and regulation of alcohol. The Federal Alcohol Administration, which used to be the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, is focused on being able to trace back, and again, within 24 hours. You have to trace back a lot of wine and spirits that was sold to company X and be able to say which vintage it was, if it's wine, and which lot number that belonged to when it came across. So they assign the lot numbers as it comes in. So and most of their stuff is coming from Europe, so they don't use the same type of traceability in Europe that we have to use in the US. So they have to assign a lot number to it. And that lot management is really important because they have to receive against that lot when it comes in. So they have to assign the lot to the purchase order so that they can receive that lot into their inventory. So when they distribute it, they can distribute from the lot. It becomes a little tricky when they've got multiple lots going to a single customer. And so the lot management piece of this became both critical and a bit challenging to do. But they, again, switched over to a modern ERP system, and it became a lot easier to do, especially on some of the prepaids that they had coming over from Europe. Another one is a food manufacturer. So this has to do more with the FDA. This particular client made the protein and mixtures for that got put into other foods. So it was really critical that they knew where this has to go. And with the Bioterrorism Act, they have a 24-hour turnaround, lot number, where and when it was shipped. All of that has to be nailed down. And also the expirations have to be kept. So they know if a product has expired or not, even though it was shipped out from their site, but they also need to know and track the shelf life of it within their site. And then if they dispose of a particular lot number, they have to keep that proof that they've disposed of that particular lot number so that the FDA can go back in and see a certificate of destruction if there is a recall on a specific product in which their product was put into. So a little trickier here because they don't do the end product. They do things that go into an end product for multiple companies. So when you're drinking your protein shake in the morning and you're filling it with that powder, they make part of what's in that powder. And that's why it's critical that they can tie it back into a lot number that the reseller had.
Great. Thank you for giving us some of those real life examples and just touching on some of the business problems that really revolve around product traceability and the manufacturing and food world. I think now we'll go ahead and kick it over to Steve to go ahead and show us just some examples of how to address that. Today, he's going to be using Sage Enterprise Management.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate it. John, great job with the overview. Appreciate that as well. So I'm a pre-sales consultant for Sage, and this is a foundation point. Just want you to know that Sage Enterprise Management is what we call device and browser agnostic. By that, I simply mean that any device that can launch a browser, be that a tablet, an Android device, an Apple device, PC, can access enterprise management. And you also then have the choice of whatever browser you like to use or want to use, be that Internet Explorer, Safari, Firefox, Chrome. I'm going to be using Chrome today. That happens to be my browser of choice. And what you're looking at here is what we call a landing page. This one is specifically for operations. These are about 200 plus landing pages that come with enterprise management standard at the time of deployment. You can see on the left-hand side, I have others, so financials, distribution, regulatory. And this is just basically kind of a quote the cache type of landing page. So all you have to do is click on these icons that will go to subsequent pages or the actual solution itself underneath this. Everything within enterprise management is personalizable. So these landing pages can be personalized for your particular organization, a department, even down to a user. So it makes it a little bit easier for new users to get up to speed and be able to navigate throughout the solution overall. So talking about traceability, I'm going to start with what we call expiration control and allocations. So I'm going to go ahead and go into a product. Kind of a definition. So by allocation, what we're talking about is the ability to reserve stock for a customer, for a work order, even if it needed to, like a purchase order receipt, we can do allocations from there. And we can either do it independently of an order, so we would kind of consider that a reservation, or we can do reservations specifically to an order. So that would be an allocation. Now we support two types of allocations. We have what we call global, and we have detail. And the analogy I like to use, if you've flown Southwest, you know they don't have specific seat assignments. They just give you a boarding group, and then when you board the aircraft, you pick the seat you want to use. That would be what we would term like a global allocation. If you fly other airlines, they typically will assign you a specific seat, so a detailed allocation in our terminology. So you have seat 21C, that's going to be your seat. These allocation rules can be used to automate issuance of material, stocking. We'll talk about that a little bit more and how we handle that allocation based on lot controls. You also can set up specific customer allocation. So you may have a customer that's buying your product that says, I only want to receive material that has a 90% shelf life remaining. And you may have another customer that comes in and says, no, we'll only take a product that got 25% shelf life remaining. So I use the analogy that if you can take a number 2 pencil and a big chief tablet, then you can write your own rules for allocations, for workflows, for pricing. Again, everything's very, very tailorable to the system. So I'm on a product screen or form, depending on your terminology, within enterprise management. Multiple tabs here. Again, these can all be personalized. You can remove them if you wanted to. But what I want to point out specifically is under the stock management, we have 3 categories. So this particular product, which happens to be a finished good, is managed. But if you have a need for potency management, we can support that as well as what we call not managed. So a lot of clients will sell services, R&D services, consulting, training. That would be like a non-managed product. So not going to stock it, can't go to a warehouse location and pull off a consultant and put them in a box and ship them out, but you still want to keep track of how much you've sold and maybe some revenue figures. And if we go down further, you can see we have both lot management and serial management. A lot of solutions can do either or. You can either choose to do lot management solution-wide or serial number management solution-wide, but not both. We're an and. We can do both of these. And again, I've got the capabilities. I may have some parts that I don't want to be burdened with having to manage the lot, so I say it's not managed. Maybe there's some that are optional. We can be mandatory, and if I am mandatory, then I can set up a lot sequence numbering system here. So give me the mask, in this case LOT, and then you tell me how you want the rest of the number parsed out. Maybe year, month, day, some kind of sequence number. So it will automatically, every time it needs a lot number, create that for you, or I can do it manually if I so desire. And I also can do lots and sublots. So you may get a large quantity from a supplier, but you don't have physical capacity in the warehouse to store all at one time. So I could have sublots, so increments of that quantity stored, and I still have all that visibility available to me. And then again, if you need to do serial numbers, we can do both. Then if I come down to the bottom, what I want to show here is what we call recontrol expiration. So think of recontrol like being a retest. So you'll see I've got lead time. So when a lot gets created, it will take that date and add 180 days to it, and that's going to be the shelf life for that lot. It can be in days or it could be in months if you wanted to. And then I also can say, well, check lead time. So you want to have visibility to the lots that are about to expire so you can use them up first and not have to scrap them. So I can set a lead time that says, or a coefficient, this one is 85. So when I'm within 85% of that shelf life, in this case is going to be 153 days, send me an alert that I need to go out and retest that to see if I can extend the expiration date. And if for some reason it does expire, it's going to put it in a status of R, which says it's rejected. And if I have to do a recontrol, it's going to say it's going to be rejected as well. Now, I've got three statuses. It can be acceptable, it can be quarantined or quality controlled, or it can be rejected. Now, I want to point out some other things here on the right-hand side of the screen. We are multi-site, so you can have multiple sites manufacturing the same product. We also have signatures. So if you happen to be FDA regulated, you need to keep track of what was changed, who changed it, the before, after. So signature management can be invoked anywhere you need to have that electronic signature captured. And I also can get a history, because as John mentioned, you need to be able to go out and say, what happened to this lot, who touched it, why did it change, when did it change, as well as visibility to where it may be in that signature cycle. So underneath all of enterprise management is a workflow engine that you can set up. So these could be email alerts, however you want to communicate to your people that you have some issues out here. The other thing I want to mention very quickly is that when lots get created, I can create labels automatically out of the system. So if I need to put a label on my finished or my raw materials coming in, I can create that label and put it on that. When I create, complete a work order, I can put labels on it. And when I get ready to ship product out, same thing. I can print a label and put it on the finished goods. So we have a standard format that we use, but it is user definable by you. Again, it can be tailorable however you want it to tailor it. Now, I went over to what we call a product category. So I just hit what we call a drill down or jump to icon. And again, I've got finished goods. You can have as many as you want to. But these are kind of like defaults. So every material that happens to be in the finished goods, here's how I'm going to set up my stock management, my lot management, my serial number management. But again, I can override that with appropriate security as I need to. I also have quality. So I can say for products in this category, how do I want to do quality? Do I need to do quality? This one's set up to be no, I don't. But I can set it up to where I do need quality. And I can have then a text sheet assigned to that type of testing. So think of this as being like a QC template of all the QC tests that need to be performed, their valid ranges of low to high, and what do I do if those things happen to go outside of that tolerance? What do I need to do? And again, especially from an FDA perspective, I need to make sure that I have access control, that people can't come in here and change this. So security down to the field level, to the screens, however you want to set it up and need to set it up. Receipt tabs, again, this is kind of part of the configuration and tailorability that you have. So I can set up rules so the system will do things for me automatically. So you see a list of receipts. This can be expanded. But if I do a supplier receipt, I'm going to put it into receipt location. I can have these ballot statuses available to me. If I'm doing quality control, I can put things in a stock location, again, with these only acceptable or rejected, because there's already going to be a queue for a quarantine solution. Same thing for issue flows. So if I'm allocating to a sales order or to a work order, here's how I want the system to work. If I'm doing issuances for shipments, subcontract, here's some rules I want to have followed. And again, my rules down here as to where it needs to be put automatically for me. And if I drill down into, say, this particular order here, you can see I can set this thing up to be, again, if it's lot control, do it by lot. I can do FIFO. I can do what we call FIFO, so the first to expire, the first out. So use that one if you can. I can certainly do LIFO. And then I can do single lot. So if my customer, or if I need to have all of my components from one single lot in my manufacturing process, I can check this box. And again, when I go to package it, if my customers are saying, I need you to make sure that everything that you send to me in that container comes from a single lot, then just go ahead and set this one here. If for some reason I don't have sufficient, then of course MRP is going to kick in and tell me I need to go procure some more, or I need to manufacture some more to make sure I have everything that I need available to me. And then the other quick tab here is what we call a cost tab. So again, if you have a need, if you have international suppliers that send product in, that we can also capture landed cost. And once again, that's going to be tailorable by you as to what do you include in that cost. So do you include freight? Do you include any kind of licensing that needs to be done, insurance? So again, you pretty much create how you want landed cost to be calculated, the elements that go into that, and we will go ahead and track it for you automatically. So that kind of gives you an idea how you can set up your products and your sites and do your controls within the solution. The other thing John talked about was traceability. So again, within enterprise management, I can have bookmarks, which I'm sure everybody's used to using in their personal. So again, I can have a list here of things that I like to produce. So again, my packaging labels, if you will. So I'm going to go into traceability, and I'm going to go ahead and put a product in here that happens to be lot controlled. Now I can do a couple of things here. There's several sort options, if you will, or criteria I can pull from. So entry type, if we look at this, you can say I can do shipments, receipts, returns, work orders. So if I want to go out and look at traceability for a particular type of transaction, then give me the transaction number here, and I can go pull that one up. But we're going to do it by lot. So when I do the magnifying glass, it's going to give me a complete list of all the lots that are associated with that raw material I entered. So we'll go ahead and do it for this first one here. And we're going to come over and we'll do what we call a display selection. So you'll see here, here's my raw material. Okay, these happen to be pinto beans. This is the site where this is being used from. Here's my lot number. Here's my quantity. And this was a work order issue of 180 pounds to this work order number. Then I also have like a miscellaneous receipt. So I just did a cycle count. And I can say I've got 22,500 pounds that I received in on this transaction. I did an issue to, again, same lot to this work order number, miscellaneous receipts, again, issues. All the traceability is here. Now, what I will ask you to do is kind of do your due diligence when you're looking at enterprise solutions. A lot of companies say they do traceability, but it's only going to be at a single level. And if I need to do multi-levels and I got to keep doing these types of inquiries, they can get fairly labor intensive and tedious. We're going to be true, I call it womb to tomb traceability. So if you need to do a mock recall or an actual recall, we're going to have unlimited levels available to you. So I'm just going to go the other direction. I'm going to do a forward one, go back and do my display selection again. And now it's pulled up. And you see these little arrows here? I'm going to maximize that so I have to scroll back and forth. But again, here's my raw material, my pinto beans for this site, this lot number. Here's my work order issue, again, to my work orders we saw before. And I can have that then go into intermediates. And then I can finally have it go out to a finished good. So again, here's my work order receipt. And notice that we do things maybe on the purchasing and production side in pounds, but we can package it in 24 8-ounce or 16-ounce, but we'd sell everything in cases. So here's my receipt of that work order. Here's a customer delivery. Here's the shipment number that it went out on. Here's the customer who purchased it and their number. If I had a PO receipt on this list, then it would do the same thing. It would tell me here's a PO number, here's the vendor's name, and here's the supplier's, the supplier's name over here. So you can see I got a complete look and feel out here. So here's, again, a finished goods. Here's a new lot number with finished goods. These are 16 ounces. These are 24 ounces. And this looks very much like an Excel spreadsheet, and it functions the same way. So I'm going to minimize this back down for just a second. So I could come down here on this grid without maximizing it, and I could go scroll left and right down here. That can get kind of, again, tedious and maybe a little even nauseating. So what you can do, much like Excel, is you can drag these fields over to the left so you can get the information that's most pertinent to that particular user on that single screen, so that it keeps scrolling back and forth if they don't need to. And John made a comment about the aircraft industry. You got to have 20 years of history, and it's got to be able to do a recall within like 24 hours. So this is going to help facilitate that type of quick response and visibility. I know when I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, we had to go to an old 4-drawer file cabinet, pull a file out for that lot number, write down where it went, then go find another file for maybe the work order or the sales order, write that number down. So we certainly couldn't get it done within 24 hours. We'd be hard pressed to maybe get it done within a week, more like 2 weeks. But now with the requirements, like you mentioned, the bioterrorism, FDA audits, aircraft audits, it's got to be immediate. So this is going to help you be able to meet those requirements. So Brad, I'll turn it back over to you. Certainly appreciate yourself and the attendees on the phone call today. And we'll let you go back to the Q&A session if you don't mind, sir.
Brad, I think you're muted.
Yes, I was talking to myself. Thank you, John. Yes, like Steve said, we're going to kick it over to the Q&A session. Thank you to those of you who submitted some questions as we were talking. Again, you can submit it through the Q&A or the chat. Happy to answer it. So it looks like the first one here, we've been approached by some of our customers recently asking for more visibility of inventory and the ability to track lots, et cetera. Do you see this trend with some of your recent clients?
Steve, if you don't mind, I'll take that one at least
please,
initially,
John.
and then you can jump in.
Sure.
We're seeing that more and more. They need to track their inventory, know what lots that are coming from the manufacturer, as well as the lot number that they may assign to it. And especially on the serialized items, they need to track that too. Some of these have shelf life issues, so they have to make sure that they're sent out by that time. So they use that to track those components too. In the medical device field, it's also critically important because once a product is sterilized, it has a shelf life for the sterilization. So they have to make sure that they use that or re-sterilize it. So we are seeing more and more of that type of request coming from our clients.
Great. Steve, did you have anything to add, or was that?
I would concur with what John just said. He's exactly correct. We're seeing the same thing.
All right, great. You know what? This next one actually, I think probably is more geared towards you, Stephen, and
Okay.
Sage. It's how does your software address the 21 CFR Part 11 requirements?
Sure. So we are 21 CFR Part 11 certified. In fact, at the end of this session, Brad will bring up a screen. I'll have Jim Neptune's contact information on it. So he's what we call a strategic account rep. And we have a white paper that addresses how enterprise management handles that requirement with a table that it shows you for all the clauses that comprise that requirement, how how we do that. So if you have a need for that, feel free to write down Jim's contact information, and we can make sure we get that sent out to you.
Great. All right, here's another one. We use Excel and other out of the system tools to help us with traceability. Do you either of you have any recent examples of customers with similar processes, and tell us how you've helped them?
So, Steve, I'll take the first crack at this if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll follow up.
And here's a real life example. So this was a medical device manufacturer, and they were doing that exact same thing. They were keeping everything on Excel, and we told them that it'd be better if they could get it into their ERP system that they had. 2 weeks after we had that discussion with them, they got an FDA audit that they failed, and it's because the Excel spreadsheets cannot be certified that they are the most current, accurate information. And so what we did is we helped them figure out how to get that into their system and had the software company come out and just turn on the module that they didn't want turned on because it cost a little extra money. And once that module was turned on, they were able to get all of the lot numbers and serial numbers into the system with all the appropriate data, because it was the other thing on the Excel spreadsheets, they were missing data. So Excel can work if you're doing very low volume, but once that volume picks up, it's no longer feasible, and you have to make sure you have the right fields in place. It's also very hard to, as Steve had said, to track the signatures via Excel.
Yeah, and I just kind of piggyback on that, John. If your existing solutions don't have that capabilities, that's about the only thing you have available to you. But should you deploy like a solution like enterprise management, you don't want to have two systems. So have, as of implementation go live date, enterprise management start tracking those lot and serial numbers, and then have to go back to Excel for the, how many years plus, as John mentioned, 20 years in aviation. So we offer import routines, and we can map, whatever you have today in either another system or Excel spreadsheets into what is needed within enterprise management. So you can pull all that history in and have all that information available to you from go live, so you can go back and do all your traceability, and again, have all your before and afters and electronic signatures. So we can help you get everything into a single solution to make that audit and recall much easier.
Great. The other thing that's kind of critical, just to jump on to what Steve had said, it's going to be critical once you get that in to do some, not just testing, but to do a mock recall, to do a mock audit from time to time, so that you're prepared for it if it actually does happen. You can put down all the processes and map all those processes, but if you don't do it on a somewhat regular basis to practice, it's still going to be a little bit of chaos.
Great. And if anyone has questions, please go ahead and submit those now. Looks like we have one more here in the queue. So sorry if we missed this, but was the Sage solution demoed today available in the cloud?
Oh, sure. So again, kind of back to that whole allowing you guys to tailor the solution. Same thing from a deployment perspective. So we can deploy in the cloud, we can deploy on premise, we can even deploy in a hosted environment. So it's whatever makes the the most sense for your organization. We can support any and all of those.
Great. We don't have any other questions in the queue. If you do think of anything, please go ahead and just type those in as we wrap up, and we can definitely address those. But we do want to go ahead and just talk a little bit more about LTA and Sage as well. Liberty Technology Advisors, we're a 100% independent strategic management company that's been around since 1995. We really improve our clients' business performances through services such as ERP selection and implementation, as well as business process reengineering and other value-added services. And we have a team of senior experienced consultants averaging over 20 years of ERP experience. And We are also joined by Sage. A reminder, Sage brings affordable and flexible ERP solutions to the SMB small business market globally, with enterprise management as its premier product for the middle market. Sage offers companies a lifetime partnership through its products and services. So again, if you liked what you heard today, please join us for the rest of our WebEd series. We will be sending out an email with a recording of today's webcast, as well as a link to register for these upcoming WebEds webcasts. And if you do have any immediate questions or you want to learn more about either Liberty Technology or Sage Enterprise Management, please go ahead and reach out to Joe Ambrose, our practice director at Liberty Technology Advisors, or James Neptune, the regional sales manager at Sage Enterprise Management. And it doesn't look like we have any other questions coming in at the moment. So Steve or John, is there anything else you guys wanted to add before we wrap it up?
This is Steve. I just want to say again, thanks to John and Brad for and LTA for hosting this, and thank the attendees for joining as well. But excuse me, look forward to continuing a relationship if there's a need.
Yeah, and I just jumping on the same bandwagon. Thanks for everybody who attended. Sage, thank you so much for walking us through a real example of how a system can handle the examples that we had talked about. That was great.
Okay, perfect. Well, it doesn't look like we had any other questions. Again, send those through. We're happy to follow up after the fact. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you guys in 2 weeks with our next webcast. So thank you, John and Steve, and everyone else who attended.